deeply engaged with the startup and entrepreneurship culture. So today's session today's session is about interacting with him about his experience, how startup industry is shaping up from the past few years. What are the real-time challenges or opportunities you being as a startup entrepreneur mindset enthusiast can consider and take advantage. So welcome with it, and I'll give session hand over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, guys, for turning up so early in the morning. I'm happy to take this opportunity to guide you through my startup journey as well as my lessons from, doing a startup, failing in it, and how to come back again stronger. So, just wanted to understand, are you guys already having any ideas in mind for a startup? Do you guys have any plans for a startup right now, or is it just a academical thing that you're getting it done?
We don't have any ideas as of now, but
Alright.
we may be having it later. So I'm inclined towards uh, entrepreneurship, but as of now, I don't have any particular ideas as of now.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I have interest.
Fair enough. So basically, there are many facets to considering entrepreneurship as a career choice, right? So I'm going to briefly touch upon facets which you need to consider before getting into entrepreneurship, because it's not that it's the flavor of the season and everybody's getting funds and everybody's success stories being shown. For every 100 startups that start up, actually there are only 2 or 5 startups which we actually read about in the newspaper of Economic Times, or Your Story, all those media outlets. So understand one thing, that media outlets make money from happy stories, especially in a startup. So it may seem very rosy to begin with, and it needs to be rosy, otherwise people will not try. But at the same time, be mentally prepared that it is going to be time consuming. It will take a lot of effort from your side. It is not going to just happen overnight. There are companies, and there are friend of mine whom I have seen, you know they have raised millions and billions of dollars. But there's been a serious amount of hard work that we tend to overlook, and that's where most of the media outlets don't even cover those things. So it's not that they are not hardworking; they are hardworking, but at the same time, being at the right place at the right time. So considering entrepreneurship, I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, are you in the right frame of mind to actually take up the responsibility of not only earning for yourself but also the people whom you will employ eventually. So right now, let's say, yeah. Yeah. So right now, say your monthly expenses are, let's say, 100 rupees. So when you are doing a startup, you have to think of how your expenses are going to be managed, not only yours but also the team members whom you get on board. So finance is a very big aspect that needs to be taken care of, and fortunately and unfortunately, people don't talk about it. When I started my journey back in 2014, I was very lucky enough to get incubated by a Gujarat government incubator, which helped me to get me seed funding and build my products. So that was a very big plus. Uh, so you have to think about the financial aspect first and foremost, like how are you going to arrange for the funds? Because if that is a big question mark, it's maybe too risky for you to think about starting up. But that being said, it is not necessary that you always need capital to start up. So my first venture, which was a product based company, it was called YOLO Perks. The product was called YOLO Perks, and we got funds from iCreate to build our first product. And we built a product, and we couldn't get product market fit. So I'm going to come to that story also. How do you evaluate a startup, and how do you go about you know making changes according to the scenario that changes in front of you? But that being said, uh, after YOLO Perks failed, I wound up everything and I started April Innovations. So April Innovations is a services company. Now, when I say services company, it's purely like somebody comes to me, asks me to build a mobile app or a web app, and we build it and we charge them for the services that we provided. And practically, it is not rocket science. It's what we learned in IT engineering for the past 4 years. I applied it in real time. And I started with zero investment, and practically April Innovations till now it has been run on a no external investment or neither an investment from my side. uh, I've always made money by getting the customer first and being paid on time, and that's how I started my second business. So second business didn't really require any kind of capital. So it depends, where you're standing and what do you want to do. So when I wound up YOLO Perks, I realized that okay, I've done the venture game, I've done the fundraising game. I don't think I'm fit for that as of now, and I couldn't get the product market fit. Obviously, the lessons learned were uh, huge for me to contemplate and come back stronger. So I decided, okay, let me go back to the drawing board and start April Innovations, which is will be a services business where I will make money first and I'll charge for my services. So you don't really require capital to be introduced. So it's not like a manufacturing business that I was starting. I was starting a web development business. So all I needed was practically a laptop, which I already had from my college time, and stable internet, and the need to get customers. So uh, that being said, there are two ways to start your startup. So one is your fundraising and fund related. There are certain products that will require an intensive amount of cash to build the product. So at that point of time, you will have to figure out how will you fund that. If you don't have internal funds, or if you have external funds, how will you raise those funds? And then the second type of business is something like a web development consultancy services, which doesn't require a lot of initial cash capital to actually start off. So I started my April Innovations. I started with one employee from my house. I didn't even have the money to, have a rented office. But what I was really good at and what I really learned at that point of time was I was pitching YOLO Perks very hard. I had reached out to almost 2,000 plus restaurants and retailers and had made very good connections. And most of the people at that point of time were asking me to give YOLO Perks for free. Coming from a traditional Gujarati, business mindset, community, I was not okay with the concept of giving it for free. Unfortunately, in hindsight, I can say I should have gone and given it for free. But yes, that is what I decided, that I don't want to give it for free. But at the same time, since I was reaching out to so many people, I happened to reach out to Phoenix Market City Kurla, and I met their marketing team. I actually made heavy efforts to
Recording in progress.
get them to uh, use my product. So what happened was, finally the marketing manager out there, he was like, "Hey, Vidit, I know you're a very hardworking guy. Uh, you want us to trial YOLO Perks, but currently I don't think so. I'll be able to get an approval for that." So he told me that I want you to build a database management system. Can you do that? Because he had already seen my prowess in building mobile application for YOLO Perks. So at that point of time, I had realized that okay, YOLO Perks may not work out, and I don't want to give it for free. So I said, okay, let me think about it. And once I decided that okay, I would want to shutter YOLO Perks down, I again reached out to him, and I said, okay, now I'm willing to do software services, as software as we can provide you custom software development. And that's how I got my first client for April Innovations, which was a big name client. I'm not saying they paid me well, but it was a big name. So I could go to another client of mine and say, "Hey, I've worked for Phoenix Market City Kurla. They seem to trust me, even though I'm a one-person company. We have delivered them this result," and that's how I got started. So that was the transition. So if I wouldn't have tried to do a lot of sales for YOLO Perks, I wouldn't have made those connections. And since I wouldn't have made those connections, that guy wouldn't have approached me to do, or rather trusted me to do a software for him, right? So in hindsight, I can go back and say, ki, okay, these things are very important, and this is how I landed where I am. But it really gave me a big jump start to start April Innovation, because understand one thing: any business, it could be a product business or a services business, you need to have a marquee client. When I say a marquee client, a client which is so big that when you talk about that client to anybody else, he's like, okay, he's automatically validating your capabilities. So when I go and say that I've worked for Phoenix Market City Kurla, people know the brand. People know, at least in Bombay, in Sayan Matunga Ghatkopar area, people know about Phoenix Market City Kurla. So they would be like, okay, if somebody as big as these guys are working with a company like this, there must be something right about these guys. So that was my start, and eventually one thing led to another. I was very good at sales. So coming to the startup recipe, there are a couple of things that I really want you to think about. As a person, as a founder, you should have, or if you don't have it, your co-founder should have, is that ability to go and do sales. I have seen, and I am a prime example of that as well. Like, where I failed, Yoloperks failed, was I tried to do sales after I had developed the product. I should have done sales when I had got the first round of funding, and I should have cracked a deal. Like, so YOLO Perks was a loyalty program for restaurants and retailers. So in hindsight, if I was in 2014 again, I would tell myself, ki with it, okay, you've raised funds, that's fine, but that's not the end of the journey. You have to actually get a customer which is a marquee customer. It could be Shopper Stop, it could be McDonald's, it could be Domino's. I know these names are too big to be approached, but if I don't get them, let's say I get a one single restaurant run. Let's say I get a restaurant which is running in Ghatkopar, like an Achija. So Achija is a small brand, and they will use my product. But will that create an important impact on my other customers? So can I go to Domino's and say, ki, hey, Achija is using my product. Will you use my product? So Domino's will be like, no, no, never happening. But if it was the other way around, if Domino's was using my product and I go to Achija, then definitely they will be interested in using my product. So understand your key customer. The first customer that you get for any product is going to be like a make or break scenario for your startup. So that is what I have learned, and I always recommend to any startup is that you may build the product. There's no harm in building the product, but find a customer who is going to be a big daddy customer for your product, from whom you will be able to get 10 more customers. If you're not able to get that first critical customer, it is going to be a hard battle. I have seen startups which have gone on to do small things for small players also, but eventually their product was so good that they could reach out to bigger players also. So you have both of these options, but I have usually seen uh, doing small things for small brands becomes very difficult to manage and scale, because bigger companies have a different aspiration, different kind of aesthetic feel towards the product. So they will make you slog a lot, but I believe that even if it takes one, like 6 months or 8 months time for you to crack that deal, it is very important. So first thing is, be very good at sales, and do sales right from the point where you have thought of an idea. Okay, this is what I want to do, and try to reach out the biggest of the lot customers, and figure out if you can get them to do an POC or a LOI for you.
Recording stopped.
POC is like a proof of concept, and LOI is letter of intent. So letter of intent is something like uh,
Recording in
uh,
progress.
let's say Phoenix Market City Kurla. I would have reached out to Phoenix Market City Kurla when I was building the product of YOLO Perks, and Phoenix Market City was my customer, and they were like, okay, we believe that you will be able to build this product, and we are giving you a letter of intent that if you build this product, we are willing to try it out for 1 month or 3 months or whatever it is for X amount of cost. And that becomes a very big milestone for you. So it's a big achievement for you as a startup owner. So you take that letter of intent and then you start building the product. At the same time, you take that letter of intent and you start reaching out to other clients as well, because somewhere down the line you will have to have one or two backups also. So this is how I would want you to think about your startup. So whatever product you are thinking of, can you reach out to the biggest clients to be able to sell to them the concept? I know it's very difficult to hearing this, but trust me, it is possible, because I did symphony before. In my college days, I was the general secretary, so I did symphony, and I reached out to Fever 104 FM and OA 104.8 FM was there. So I had reached out to both of them. OA had agreed to me that they will come on board, and this was the time where after 2 weeks, after we had gotten OA 104.8 FM, we got Fever 104 FM. So once we had Fever 104 FM, suddenly it was no brainer for Hindustan Times to tie up with us. And since we had Hindustan Times and Fever 104 FM, I was able to convince MTV to come to shoot and record Symphony. So it was a domino effect. But imagine, instead of Fever 104 FM, I would have some kind of free internet radio brand who would have decided ki, okay, we'll collaborate with you. Come on board. We'll come on board. Will Hindustan Times want to associate their brand with that kind of a brand or not? Right. So think from that point of view. So it sounds very practically impossible to crack such big customers, but it is very important that you do, or at least try, because if you do that, you're already set on a different path. But if you're not able to do that, you can still start small, but keep at it. You will have to struggle a bit, and always think of your customers as your brands whom you can showcase. If you are going to be working for tier 3, tier 4 brands, it will be very difficult to move up the ladder. So you will always have to keep on searching for moving up the ladder. So I think sales is very important as a startup journey. That being said, that's not the end of it. I would want you to ask me any questions if you have regarding this concept, if you have anything.
Yes, sir. So as you said that we should be pitching our product to the big companies first for the domino effect, right? So I just wanted to know that in the initial phases, how does one, convince a bigger company
Yeah.
to join in, as we don't even have any clients, not even smaller ones.
Yeah, definitely. So again, you will have to build relationships. So I know this sounds a lot more easier said than done. If I were to again take the example of Symphony, so before Symphony we had Abhyantriki, and we had reached out to these brands. It was not that we had not reached out to these brands, but at that point of time, obviously due to some XYZ reasons, they were not convinced, or whatever reasons were there, we couldn't go through. But we had already initiated a communication line with them. And what happens is that persistence, for me, persistence is a very big uh, weapon a startup founder can have. I was persistent with Phoenix Market City's team. I would meet them, I would wait for them for almost 2 hours, 3 hours. I practically waited 4 hours outside MTV's office to get the producer to come to Somaya. So I was waiting outside her office for 4 hours, and eventually she came out and she was like, "You are one person who's not given up. Most of the people whom I've made them sit for such a long time, they've gone away." So then because I did that, that's the only reason why she agreed to come to our campus and had a look at the campus, where she will probably, she decided whether she would want to come to our campus for shooting MTV beats. I think some college beats or some name was there. So persistence was very key, and I had built that rapport with her. I had like it didn't happen overnight. So it was like almost 1 month's effort. So right when I had started the marketing for Symphony, it was probably in the month of September, October, and Symphony happens in February. So up until December, we were not sure that MTV is going to come. So it took 3 months, almost good 3 months time to convince them to come to uh, Somaya and shoot. So again, Phoenix Market City, almost 6 months time. I waited. I met them. I pitched them so many times. It didn't work out. Most of the times, you will get an answer as a no. So these are very hard options, very difficult options. Now if you tell me that okay, this is not something that I can do, so then I would say okay, don't worry about it. Whatever startup you're doing in, right, do you have any kind of connects which are personal connects? So to give you a very good example, let's say I was starting a business called something like a e-pharmacy business. So I don't have anybody in my business or in my family connections who is anywhere related to pharmaceuticals. Does it make sense for me to actually find a co-founder who has connects, who has big connects, who can leverage his connects to get me that first second meeting with those big powerful players in that market? Yes. If yes, then I should get some kind of a co-founder who can do that for me. If no, then probably I would rather evaluate my idea again. Maybe my idea might be path breaking, but am I the right person to execute it, is the question that you have to ask. So now let's say I want to venture into pharmacy, drug making, the like paracetamol or something like that. I want to get into pharmaceutical business. Let's say I want to manufacture medicines. So now I have to ask myself whether I am actually equipped to execute the finance, the marketing, the hiring, the team building aspect, everything. Can I do that? Can I actually think of myself executing all of these functions very clearly? If yes, great, go ahead. If no, then there is an option of can I get somebody to join me who can complement me in doing these things? So again, you can continue going ahead and building on the startup. If after both of these options have failed, one and two have failed, then you really need to think about whether you want to continue building this product or this startup, because that is where uh, your core competencies are not matching with your startup idea. So I built a product for a restaurant and a retailer, but I never knew DMart or Reliance or anybody, in my business, in my direct business circle or personal contacts, who can actually give me a meeting with the CEO of DMart or Domino's or McDonald's. So that was one major failure or major flaw that I actually failed to realize. That so I was so focused on building the product, I actually didn't really think about the sales part. And when once the product was ready, I was already running on a very short runway, right? So it became very difficult for me to uh, get the customers in the specified amount of time, because you always are running with a deadline that by this time you should have this many customers, or this proof of concept has to be there. So it was a big challenge. So had I started working directly while I was working on the product, I should have also reached out to McDonald's, Domino's, tried to figure out, if I cannot do it, probably get somebody who is a co-founder or who could be an employee as well, but a very good strong connect where I can definitely pitch my product and get it inside the retailer or the restaurant that I want to get into, and उनके success पे ही मेरा success depend होता था. So that was a big learning that I learned. I should have done that. I know it is very difficult, but I am saying it's not impossible. You can do this. You can do it the conventional way by being persistent also, it takes time. So that's the reason I said, at a product level also, you have to start reaching out to client. If you don't have a client, I really feel somewhere your startup is not going to work out. You if you're not able to solve the problem of getting the first marquee client. I'm saying marquee because small clients are okay. There were restaurants who were using YOLO perks, बट दे वर नॉट इवन लाइक उनको मैं अगर आपका उनका नाम भी बोलता ना तो आपको अभी भी उनका रिकलेक्शन नहीं होगा बिकॉज वो रेस्टोरेंट ही 1-2 साल में बंद हो जाती है, राइट? सो you have to figure out how we are going to tackle that. So I hope this answers your question, right? You can be either persistent or you can get somebody who's connected to that, end customer. And while pitching, you will have to be very upfront and honest that I have not built the product, but I require an LOI from you. And once you have met that person, he will have to trust you. Now, how do you build trust? By showing your previous records. So with 104, with Fever 104, what happened was I already had 104.8 FM. So I could always go back and say, hey, I already have 104.8 FM. Would you want to work with us? So that brought the credibility because that person didn't know me, you know. Neither did the MTV producer knew me as a person who I am. But there was this trust being built up that okay, there was an MOU signed with XYZ brand, and these brands are big brands, so they would not take decisions in haste, right? So that's how you build your own credibility, right?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So moving on. So sales is very important. Second thing comes to is when I say startup, right? So so I always hear this that fundraising is the end goal. It's not the end goal, and don't be carried away with fundraising. In fact, I think fundraising at idea stage sounds very cool, but it could be detrimental as well because it makes you complacent, because then you are like, okay, I have enough time to figure out how I'm going to do XYZ, tasks like doing sales or whatever it is. So fundraising, trust me, should not be your first goal of starting a startup. Your first goal should be figuring out a customer and figuring out a product play where your product can actually sit well. Can you execute that product? So a simple example I would take here is that let's say I want to get into again pharmaceutical. I want to get into manufacturing medicines. Let's say I have somebody who is like a Pfizer who is willing to say that okay, if you build the company, if you build the industry well, we will give you a first order of worth XYZ amount, but we'll not pay you right now. We'll pay you once you show us that your company is ready. So now
Recording stopped.
I have Pfizer's LOI, but I don't have anybody in the background to actually build the industry, build the required norms according to the norms, right? So now your execution part becomes very very critical. So these are like things that you have to take care before you start up. You should have a plan, at least, this is the kind of guy whom I'm going to approach, this is the guy whom I'm going to say okay, he'll be my CTO, or you have had a word with him, he's equally excited about you, and you tell him ki, okay, don't jump the ship, don't join me as of now. If you're not comfortable, join me once I have an LOI or something like that, because once you have an
Recording in
LOI,
progress.
you will definitely be able to go to investors also and raise funds. But more importantly, you can't just raise funds because you have an LOI. Now you have to go to the investor saying that okay, this is the LOI from the customer side, this is the team that I am going to build, and these are the people who are going to help me execute this, and why these people, why are these people only required to build this set of product. So building your team or having an idea of what your team is going to be looking like is going to be very very critical. given the state where we are, it's going to be very difficult for you or for me also, like finding right set of people with the right mindset. So ideally speaking, I think college is the best time to find your co-founders, and BE project is a ultimate launchpad for your product. So BE project is any which way you're going to do your BE project for getting your marks. Might as well. In fact, Ashwini ma'am was my project coordinator, and she can very well say that I built a mobile application at that point of time. Although I'm not a great coder, but that was a very good launchpad for me to actually say, okay, I have built a mobile application. So even if I was not standing in front of the investor saying that, okay, I cannot build this application, I can build the application. So it brings a lot of credibility. So think from a point of view where you are coming from and what are your core strengths. Once you know your core strength, what are your core weaknesses, and can you plug those weaknesses by getting people who are good at that, at those things. So uh, I was very good at sales. I was very good at storytelling. Storytelling is another skill that is very important in startups. I'll touch upon that as well. Just remind me if I forget on it. Uh, but more importantly, putting up a great team, getting the right people at the right juncture, at the right role is far more critical than anything else apart from sales. But this is the next big failure point that can occur in a startup. You need to get the right people and the right place. So convincing them, it's going to be a very big challenge. So if I were very much sure that I'm going to do my startup, I wouldn't have let go of any of my council members to pursue anything else, but just to focus on building a startup. But in hindsight, yes, I can say that. But for you guys, you can also think of it like that, where you have your BE project, you are you're building the BE project for marks, definitely. But at the same time, can you productize it? Can you get into a market where you can get a sales done? And I'm pretty much sure that all of you guys are coming from a very affluent family. So I think you may not want to be persistent, but you can at least have connects in those industry. And can you get those connects to buy into your idea at an idea stage or at a B project level stage, so you have a clarity of where you're going. So I think uh, we have a very successful story from Somaya itself, of that chessboard. I think Square Off is the name of the startup. So those guys had built this as their own BE project, but then they decided to continue and form a company and continue building Square Off after graduation, taking funds from Riddle or any other or any other investors. But what happened was that they had already carved out the most critical aspect for them at that point of time. I don't think so they had thought of sales at that point of time, but they had carved out the execution bit very well. So they, by the end of their fourth year, they had a working prototype of a chess model, which they could pitch it to anybody, right? So sales can come later on, but I always prefer to have sales first. But in their case, I think it was later on. It was the product first, because the concept, it was so new. It was practically impossible for people to visualize that. The people who could actually visualize it were people who had seen Harry Potter movies, and Harry Potter movie people who have seen those movies, they are usually not in the decision making space, right? They cannot take decisions of crores of rupees. So it is going to be difficult. So that's where probably for them, building the product, at the same time having the risk of failure also. If they failed, okay, any which way, their B project would be you know decent amount of effort they had put in, so they would get the good marks and they would be placed anywhere else. But at the same time, if they succeed, the potential of upside was so high, right? In hindsight, right now everything is I'm saying is from looking at past. But these are the lessons that I want you to carry. Don't take your BE project very lightly. I didn't take my BE project very lightly. In fact, uh, Ashwini ma'am can be a testament to it, but I actually put in a lot of effort to build that mobile application. And since I built that mobile application, I realized that, okay, if I have to build this as a company, as a services company, I may not be the right person to code. I'm not the right person to code, but I am a good person to eventually be able to hire a person who can code, right? So I knew my core strengths and weakness back then itself. So I had realized that I was good at marketing, I was good at sales, I was good at building teams, getting work done, but I was not good at coding. I was good at, to a certain extent, I was good at the logical part, but I was not really good at coding, and I realized that I could not do that. So I had made it very clear. So understanding your core strengths and weaknesses are going to be very critical uh, for your success. Any questions on the team building aspect for you guys, or the BE project guys, BE project concept? I think no questions. All right. Coming to the uh, very critical part, I feel is storytelling. Uh, so storytelling, I hope you guys understand what I mean by storytelling, right? You can take up an experience in your life and portray it in a manner of a story, right? So when I'm saying that I did symphony, or I did YOLO perks, it's an experience that I had, but now I am sharing that experience in a form of story, which is easy for you to interpret and understand, or it brings you down to my level of understanding and makes you feel a part of the story. you know why I failed in YOLO perks, or what made it successful, or what went wrong. I can keep on talking about all of these things, but if I don't make you understand from my perspective or my story, it becomes very difficult for you to digest this conversation. It would be another lecture. I don't want you to think of giving a lecture. Uh, right now, what I am actually trying to do by taking this lecture also is that I am brushing up my storytelling skills. I am trying to make you understand why I did what I did, and at the same time, I'm also uh, growing myself into a better storyteller. So when I say a storytelling is very critical, it's because when you're pitching to an investor, or you're pitching to any potential team members also who are willing to join your team, or whom you are thinking that they will join your team, uh, the story aspect is I'm saying underrated in the entire journey, that most of the people don't talk about storytelling. uh, but now the times are changing. You have design thinking, they have these things where they actually have storytelling sessions where they actually help you to articulate your startup journey. So uh, every time I get an opportunity to talk about my journey, my experience, I'm refining my storytelling skills. So when I'm telling story, what exactly I mean by storytelling is that, uh, let's say there is Gaurang, there is Isha, all right? If I were to ask you to summarize your story, what is your journey in Somaya like? Okay, and you can tell me about your journey about Somaya, and I can tell you about my journey in Somaya, and there will be a stark difference. I hope if your story is better than mine, then amazing. But I feel that that's something that is not taught. It is something that is accrued over a period of time. So I when I was a part of Somaya, I was part of public relations officer. I became the public relations officer. Then I became the general secretary. Then I did my B project and everything. So I can actually talk about my and each year in Somaya and give you a story where you will feel like you actually lived my entire life, those 4 years in Somaya, right? And you will be feeling good about it. So ask yourself, if, and this is something nobody tells you about. Everybody answers this question invariably in their final placements, because the this question is in essence, tell me about yourself. This is the question that everybody asks in their placements. Tell me more about yourself. And that's where people are stuck. Okay, what am I? What am I? What have I done in my college? I have no idea. But since I was a part of students council, we actually had interviews back in second year itself. So I had to showcase why I was good, what made me different from other people. So all these things are not being, day to day, not being asked to us, so we don't take them seriously. Fortunately, in my case, I had those things happening parallelly while I was interviewing for these posts, so I got to answer those questions, and I was able to actually articulate it well. And now looking back, I understand that since I did those things, since I gave those interviews, I was able to actually improve my communication skills, my storytelling skills, my ability to make you connect with me myself, and convince them ki, okay, you can trust me with this position, or trust me with this responsibility, right? So at the end of the day, investors or team members are looking for somebody whom they can trust. And how will you build that trust? Because you practically don't know that person, you've never met that person ever in your life. And this is a part of your sales also. Like, I get the person who doesn't know me, uh, you know at all, from that level to he knows me, ki he can trust me. Bringing that person from that level to this level is an art. And that art is something that you learn by talking, learn by doing, learn by you know talking about yourself. So right now, if I meet anybody else, also I try to make sure that they are comfortable with me at my level, coming from a no trust level to a high trust level, bringing that person. And it will not happen very easily, but you will have to keep on doing it. I don't know, probably in fourth year it might be too late for you, but you can always keep on trying. You can keep on start taking lectures or something like that. Start taking talking about yourself. What is your journey been like? If anybody right now can just tell me what has been your journey in Somaya. I just want to understand where you're coming from, and I can probably give you some kind of tips on improving your story. It would be easier for me to actually show you how I can help you in storytelling. So if somebody wants to take this opportunity and talk about their journey, I can probably be happy to tell. Or otherwise, I can tell about my journey, but I don't think so that makes sense, because I have already kind of perfected that story, so I don't want to perfect that story. Anybody would like to share their 4 years in Somaya? Trust me, it's free. I can charge for these kind of things, but it's free right now. No issues. I can understand. So yeah, so storytelling, I think reach out. You can reach out to me anytime if you want to improve your storytelling skills, because at the end of the day, it is a part of your sales mechanism. And uh, all these things right now, and what I'm saying is, these are very you know interpersonal related skills. These are not something that you will learn by somebody teaching you. You will have to keep it doing. These are part of your leadership qualities. These are part of your taking responsibilities and delivering on your responsibilities. So if at all you feel that, okay, these are the skills that I'm lacking, probably take up a role which requires you to be a leader. I was a very introverted person when I joined Somaya, but at that point of time, I had clearly, my father had told me, okay, this is the new chapter in your life. You need to change. If you want to change something, you need to apply yourself to changing that. And that's where I started applying myself for. I started with class representative. I had no confidence in whether I would become a class representative or not. Fortunately, during our time, it was just a PRO coming in and saying who wants to be a class representative, and the class would go silent, like how you guys are right now. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And that has been the motto for me. During even when I was in college, I would make sure that if the teacher is asking some kind of question, I would respond to it, even though I may not know the entire truth of it, but I would still respond to it. So that was one of the reasons why I had a very good relationship with my teachers, because every time I was in the class, I would not be so much in class because of my extracurricular activities, but whenever I was in class, it was a good experience for them also, that there is somebody who's trying to take that effort to answer to the questions. I remember very well, in certain classes he would be like कि जैसे question पूछा सब लोग का मुंडी नीचे, and it's fine, I can understand, I've been through that. But I think these you can take these things as an opportunity also. You can take these things to improve yourself. So definitely work on your storytelling skills. Now I would like to take a couple of questions which are very pressing from your end. You have any questions regarding your startup, your journey, your fundraising aspect, your team building aspects, anything related to, because obviously I can keep on going about startups, but I think there could be certain questions that that are pressing in your head that I can solve, or rather try to give a solution to. Any questions?
There's going to be a very typical experience with it. You know it how is whether we are in an offline mode or online mode.
No, I
Few
understand, ma'am.
experience as a teacher never changes. That, I keep on experiencing that even in an online mode. It's the same one. Only thing is that at least in an offline mode, I could have asked, Chulu Jai comment on something or Garang comment on something.
No, I
Now
understand.
online.
No, I understand, ma'am. I know it, and it's I have been through that journey, so I know it's very difficult to put up your hand and discuss. But that fear, if it is taken out, it's amazing, because that has worked very very well for me. I can the fear of talking is something that everybody has in Indian society, and if it is taken care of, I think it can be working wonderful. Because as I think somebody had asked me, how do you get sales to these big conglomerates, I have sat with the CEOs of a company which is having 1,000 plus employees. I've sat with CEOs which have 2,000 crore plus market cap, but they still listen to me. They are not different, right? It's just that we think that they are different, and that's the reason why we don't ask them those questions. We fail to ask those questions. We feel very small, and it's fine. It's completely fine. I've been there, done that. So it's just that you need to get up there and start asking questions, start discussing, start talking, because sooner you do, because these are the things that will make a lot of difference in your startup. You cannot run a startup by being very very quiet. It becomes very difficult. There are many interpersonal skills that are involved to run the startup. You have to be empathetic towards other people. You have to understand where they are coming from and try to mitigate their problems also. So you are a problem solver, all in all.
Yeah, very, very true with it. And this particular course, though, we have titled it as a startup engineering. Okay, I intended to keep the focus on whether your idea, whatever you think, whether that qualifies for the person's startup journey or not, that is another thing. But having the idea, validating the idea, picking that up to shape up in something which you can present and discuss, that itself is a part of the experience that I expect them to have under these course. And typically the interaction with like you and initially we had an interaction with Harshal. Both the interactions are very constructive. Like you, I can always consider as a poster boy of my Department of Information Technology. So I have
Hopefully.
seen your journey. You are my first batch, so I never ever forget. Like I have seen the experience which you recalled about your environmental project. Yeah, the topic which you have chosen over at that time, that itself as a element of novel is very common. I being a part of a project coordinator, I see that every batch has is out of 30-35 group, 20 students are doing the Android app. But when you pick up that, I think you are the only group who is working with the Android application at that time. Objective.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, it's very nice to witness such a good and enthusiastic journey. So I think you. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, to listen to you as always, and
Yeah.
by listening to you, gives me the one insight about how I can introduce you to my project students as well. Because one aspect which you have opened up about how project shape up you, I'll keep on bothering you. Rest assured that on us.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to just leave one thought is that take your BE projects very seriously if you're really thinking about a startup. I think that is the best launchpad you can have, you can ask for practically. Because once you get into the real world, the failure cost is so high, because if you fail in a startup, people will ask you why didn't you continue taking up a job and everything. But it's okay, it's completely fine. It depends on your appetite to handle failure. But more importantly, college projects, BE projects gives you license to fail. So if you fail, that's fine. If you succeed, it's millions of dollars for you.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very. Thank you, Vidit. Thank you for joining us. I'll be in touch. Uh, Vidit, am I audible to you?
No, I'm losing you in between right now.
I am having some network issue. I'm telling thank you, and I'll be keep in touch with you for
Sure.
a few more interesting sessions.
Definitely.
It's always pleasure to listen to you.
Yeah. All right. It was nice talking to you guys. Best of luck. And let's hope we have another startup from you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. I'll take your leave, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Vidit.
Yeah. Bye.